weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you for making time to join us.
With only just about 1 week into it, like John said, November has been quite eventful already. From the very sad building collapse in Ikoyi here in Lagos, in fact, 2 of them were recorded this week, with over 30 people dead. There has been a lot of anger and frustration.
A lot of anger and frustration.
Very sad story. So many angles coming from that, and I was most saddened by the report that a couple of the people who passed, in that incident were very young people.
Very young
people who were just eking a life, just a living. Youth corpers, people from Abuja, from Port Harcourt who were drafted, to Lagos to participate in the construction of this building.
Well, we hope that the investigation will reveal exactly what happened and what caused this, and it will serve as a deterrent for...
that's a word it's a normal word that a lot of people say, but the lives that are lost, can we have them back? Never.
It's really sad.
So it's really sad.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
Well, and in Anambra State, the police has declared a 24-hour restriction of movement in the state due to the election. There are 7 major candidates who want to succeed Willie Obiano. Interesting, isn't it?
Very interesting.
We'll let that pass.
The Anambra issue, very interesting. In fact, it's been building up for months.
We'll watch it as it unfolds.
Yes, and fortunately, we have a live reporter right there. And so the stories will come right as they are being cooked.
Yes, hot.
Hot.
Fresh.
On Plus TV for all our viewers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, interesting times. We also have heard just the Anambra elections will be peaceful, we hope. We expect updates from our subsequent bulletins on the channel. On Today with John and Helen, back to the program of the moment, we have 2 guests who will be talking to us about importance of community awareness. How aware are you of where you live? And how are you impacting that community? It's time to take a quick break. By the way, I'm Helen Ongma Odeleye.
And I am John Senaya.
Once again.
Daddy, please help me. No, come on.
Just calm down.
Are you listening to me? Everything is not okay. He's lying.
Oh, they blow my SB Saki up.
Does he have a laptop?
Thank you for staying with us. Now, may I ask, do you understand your neighborhood? Yes, you. Do you understand your neighborhood? Many times we move into a neighborhood and live there for years without paying attention until something happens. And this, most times, could be tragic. Today on the show, we want to look at the importance of paying attention to where we live, security, and people-wise.
And I'm a culprit here, moving into an environment without asking questions, without having the history and all of it. Well, our first guest will be helping us understand how and why we need to pay attention to security in our neighborhood. Our first guest on the show this morning is Cynthia Gregg, IIS. She's also the General Secretary of the Association of Licensed Private Security Practitioners of Nigeria, ALPSPN. Dr. Cynthia Gregg is a serial award winner, and amongst her awards is Distinguished Women in the Security Industry by NSCDC and ALPSPN. All of these are security organizations, I believe. She got that award in 2020. So you see how qualified our guest is on the show today. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for finding time to join us on the show this morning.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be with you this morning.
Thank you. How about hello from you to the guests?
Hello from me.
to the guests?
I have hello written all over me. In fact, I am over the moon. I'm trying to recover from all of her qualifications.
Okay.
She's written, she's such a, she's knee deep in security.
I'm telling you. And for a babe too, for a lady. Okay, Cynthia, once again, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. Now people live in clusters. And these clusters have certain characteristics that are shared. Now, to help us understand our topic for today, could you please give us some of the characteristics that make up a typical neighborhood?
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be in your midst this morning. I need to quickly correct. Is a cluster where you have houses, people living, cohabiting within the same neighborhood. You have what you call huts, structures, defined buildings for business operation, for residential purposes, and you have a couple of people who cohabit in this environment. It becomes a neighborhood of its own.
Okay.
And in that neighborhood, there are certain expectations you need or you have of such people living in that neighborhood, which borders on their security. And that is what we are here to talk about today.
Yeah. And before we dive into security fully, because I know you are itching to dive into security, let's take a cursory look at this issue of neighborhoods and how they've been. Over time, neighborhoods in Africa have moved away from being traditionally communal. I'm sure you'll agree with that. And what we see now tend towards more of privacy and less of community. Why is this so?
Well, people have decided to go private. One reason is for fear of security. I am conscious of the level of information my neighbor has about me.
Yes.
That I want to share with somebody else. I am conscious of the level of information an artisan who has probably come to work in my house has about me that is going to share with somebody.
Yeah.
Before, what threatens security the most in this country is information. Okay. Now, it's expected that we manage that privacy, that space that belongs to everybody. However, it is important to also relate with ourselves in a given community or in a neighborhood, because you can't live alone. Your security begins with the level of information you have about that community where you live or where you operate your business from, and the level of relationship you have with the people living in the same community with you. Okay. So how you manage that with vis-a-vis the need for you to also be very private so people don't sell you out is dependent on your strategy.
Excellent.
And that is what you see that you call people tending to go private.
All right, information you have just said is key. I'd like to know, how do you go about getting information about, on your neighborhood and on the people, about the people who live around your neighborhood? How do you do that without you having been perceived as you're poke-nosing or you're even a security threat?
Okay, you see, when we have decided, if you've decided to live in a place, you must have interest in knowing who your next neighbor is. I want to know who lives on the next structure next to me. I want to know who lives on the next flat. The reason why this is important is because you don't want to see a strange face that you can't describe. So we get to know ourselves by coming out sometimes for communal meetings, monthly meetings. Sometimes we get to know ourselves by interacting with a strange face you're saying. Oh, you live in this premises? And the person says, yes. Oh, when did you park in? I parked in last week. Oh, so we are neighbors now. Somebody must break that silence.
Okay.
Okay, somebody must break that silence.
Oh my God.
Now, I see you moving from privacy to controlled privacy. Okay. Now, let me ask you. We are often reminded, of course, that that you should be our neighbor's keeper and all of that. Isn't that rather intrusive now?
Yes, you can't rule it out. There is always a need for us to be our neighbor's keepers. Do you know one day, a very strange development occurred in my house. We had one of the flats burning. Flame just started from nowhere. And a neighbor of mine was in the premises. He probably has no connection to the flat in question.
Yes.
But save the grace of God, the fact that he was around on that day. He mobilized other people and then they quenched the fire. If he hadn't done that, the fire would have spread into including his own apartment and other apartments in the premises. So that is exactly what you talk about, know your neighbors. You can't do away with your neighbors.
Yes.
They are part of your coexistence. Now, there's a huge difference between managing your privacy and relating with your neighbors.
Okay. So
Yes.
where one stops.
Yes, you manage your privacy by keeping your information about your life to yourself. What you want the public to see is what they get to see.
Yeah.
What you share about yourself with the public is what they get to know. So, but a situation where you have somebody you can't even say hi to, you live in the same neighborhood, I see you on the street, I can't even convey you from one spot to the other, is no longer friendliness. So that's the huge difference. So we can say hi to one another.
But abroad now, you don't know your neighbor. You may not even know
Yeah, but
your
it doesn't
neighbor.
make it right. We're Africans, for God's sake, for crying out loud, and we're Nigerians.
No, in Nigerian setting, it's quite clear. It baffles me when I see a new face on my street and I can't ask a question.
Okay.
When I get to a new community, people ask me, where are you going to? You look like
You're new.
you're a new person here.
Yeah.
So I'm very security conscious to the extent that I want to know who that new face is.
Yes.
So I break the ice, I walk up to the person and I ask who you are.
Who are you?
You probably may be a new occupant in a new building.
Okay.
You probably may be even a loiter. I'm very scary about loiters.
Yes.
I'm scared about artisans. Some of them upturn the rules of engagement.
Yeah.
You know. So all of these are the reasons why you must relate with your neighbors, either from house to house or from flat to flat.
Very important information, but a lot of us don't practice this. You get too busy, you get home, you just get into your house of everyone to ensure that this happens. Talk to us about, ensuring that security is tight in your neighborhood. How much success do you think we have achieved in this regards as Nigerians?
Well, it varies from neighborhood to neighborhood. There are estates, there are associations like street associations who are very particular about how their accesses are controlled. You go to a few estates in Lagos State, mainland or island, you have regulated rules for entry into such communities.
The gated ones.
The gated ones. And even some of the ungated ones may be controlled unknown to you because you are new to the community. So it's quite important that what has bound us together as neighbors in same community is one, as security, which begins with our access, the various accesses, the authorized, and as well as the unauthorized openings.
Yes.
The kind of people who come to even visit you worry me. The kind of noise you make in your apartment bothers me. The kind of artisans you bring around, even when there is a construction site on a particular street, I want to know, the level of commitment those workers have. And particularly, I begin to watch, how committed they are to the job they are doing and how they do not infiltrate into the immediate community, because if they become a threat, anyone can actually be a threat to anybody, especially in the area of selling information. And this information is sold to unwanted elements, and the next day begin to attack you.
We often take these things for granted,
John has a question to wrap this conversation up.
Yes.
But before that, John, can I throw in just one quick one? And that quick one is, we have a lot of business, offices, supermarkets, hospitals, and all of that in our neighborhoods. These days, it's not only residential anymore. The businesses are eating into the residentials. How much of this control, can we have when the business establishments are more, in those areas now?
Okay, there are categories of estates. Some are called commercial estates, while some are called commercial and residential. Mostly. However, let's say a mix of both commercial and residential areas. What you do is the way you plant your security matters. When you have a supermarket in a particular neighborhood, you will not expect the owner of the supermarket to come to the gate to pick his customer or customer from the gate. So it behoves on the security outfit or security formation you have to be able to monitor the direction or the movement of that person to that supermarket and out of the supermarket. So that's why, again, many times a lot of people don't want to operate businesses within closed environment.
Yeah. We've used the word neighborhood, community several times during this chat. When does a neighborhood become a community?
You see, when a neighborhood could be a smaller community, like what you do with CDAs and CDCs. A CDA is Community Development Association. A CDC is Community Development Committees. You have pockets of CDAs coming together to form what you call a CDC. Now, same applies to that formation. The neighborhood is like a small town of its own within a larger community.
A microcosm.
A microcosm, exactly. Okay. Just like what the CDA is to the arts fellowships of the church. Okay. Same way the neighborhood is to the community. So the community, you could have a CDC chairman and his escorts controlling the affairs, the leadership of the entire community or operate businesses in any environment to partake in the security of their community.
Yes,
be involved. Security is everybody's business.
Okay.
So you must take yours very private and very seriously.
Yes.
You must connect with every arms of your security formation in your community because your security is paramount to you and you cannot blame anybody when your security is jeopardized.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Terribly.
We only started a few minutes ago.
Yes.
And we've run out of time.
So, thank you so much for your time, Cynthia Gregg. I'm sure we will have you back here to do a bigger, session with us on security because this is what the nation is talking about at this moment. And she's Oluwatosin Ishola, and she will join us right after the break to look at how you can impact your environment. What role do you have to play? We'll be back shortly.
Wake up, Motherland, to electrifying performances at the 2021 All-African Music Awards. Afrima, from November 19th to the 21st, 2021 at Eco Hotels, Lagos, Nigeria.
Featuring Africa Music Business Summit, a platform for business networking and interaction among music professionals.
Join Afrima Music Fest, an evening of non-stop music concerts with live broadcasts and performances from African music superstars. Date is Friday, November 19th from 6 p.m.
Sunday, November 21st comes with all the glitz and glam from Africa's music superstars, celebrities, and international personalities at Afrima Awards Ceremony. Red carpets 4:30 p.m. Awards 7:30 p.m.
All at the Hotels and Suites, Victoria Island, Lagos, Nigeria. For tickets and seat reservation, visit www.afrima.org. Brought to you by GoBed247.com.
Navadina Head.
Address home. Afrima. Still we sing. For hope, for celebration.
All right, thank you so much for being there. It's Today with John and Helen on Plus TV Africa. You missed our first guest on the show today. We just talked about the importance of being aware in your advocates for social justice, inclusive development, and bridged inequality gaps. Her non-profit Together for Needs initiative has reached over 7,000 persons, providing varied support and empowerment for disadvantaged groups. And it's a huge pleasure to have you join us on the show this morning, Tosin. And you look beautiful.
Thank you.
Bless
May
you.
I ask you, Tosin, how do you manage to get all of this and still look so calm?
Play with us. We had two big ladies on the show this morning.
Yes.
I'm so happy to be here.
I can
Thank
call you Tosin, yeah?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Feel free to call me Tosin.
Tosin, yes.
Go
Yes, so Tosin,
Okay.
communities are what they are.
Yes.
Because they share certain structures and maybe codes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have any choices by way of changing any of these codes?
I think that the structure really does speak to connectedness, and the codes speak to the principles, that guide the behavior in the community. And the way communities are formed, there are all kinds of communities. There are business communities, there are, your fiscal communities in terms of like borders, and all of that. But what makes you part of the community mostly is because of some of these codes which, become acceptable to you. If it was customs or traditions, you were born there, it becomes the way of life, and it may be hard to change. But I think that the goal of even any change when it comes to community should be improvement, probably doing away with bad practices, negative or harmful practices that do not promote community health or community well-being, not just to tear the community apart. So I think that the way the change would be effected is where the issue will be. Would it be ownership? Would there be ownership where people say, this really should be changed? There shouldn't be female genital mutilation. We shouldn't be, killing twins. We should, people must come to a realization that a practice, a code, a principle is not progressive, is not helpful, and then seek to change it. And then it has to be, done in such a way that people realize that this, but change is one of the things that people really struggle with. So we have to be careful how we go about these changes. If we want success, as the outcome. If you want to scatter things, you can say, I'm going to pull out, but those are not, those kinds of approaches do not solve the problem. Yes. It's about how can we do it, collaboratively to achieve a desired better outcome.
Okay. Community, we hear people during elections or whatever they do to choose who their leaders are. A lot of mayhem, a lot of confusion at some point in time. So how does a community choose its leaders and influencers? What's the best way to go about it?
I think that, depending on how the community is structured or formed, different people would have ways by which, their leaders are to be chosen. For certain communities, it's even expressly stated from establishment that this community will be led by people in this family. If it's a tradition, it's a royal family, that they own the titles, forever. There's really nothing you can do about it. With democracy and, how we are now structured, look at tier level, state government, and all of that, people have to elect their leaders, or appoint them. Some communities, the business community may be based on capacity, not even just, but I think that what should be at the core of electing any leader or race or religion, because that's one of the things that seem to be holding us back as a people, just waiting for when the next region should wield power, whereas we know what we need and we can get what we need regardless of where in Nigeria, the leader comes from. So those are, in my opinion, that regardless of...
A few times you've talked about how the community is formed, how the community is structured. Now, see if you can answer this.
Okay.
Who decides how a community is structured?
I think that, again, because it depends on the context or what kind of community we're talking about, but for example, in Nigeria, the way the responsibility for structure is in the hands of our leaders, it's a top-down approach. Mostly sometimes the constitution already does determine how things will be done, how structures, so it's not, And then even for normal communities, policies influence it, and that's always the better way. So that someone doesn't wake up tomorrow and say, let's change structure. People already know that this is how we would elect our leaders.
Yes.
There will be a voting system. It will be minority. If 3 people are present in the meeting, out of 5, things like that. So policies, and I think that that's really depends on the kinds of community we're talking about. But most times it's always better if it's influenced by a written code, a constitution, a policy, or whatever else that guides, the affairs of that community.
Excellent.
That's how I look
She
at
got
it.
it.
Did she answer?
It was supposed to be a tripwire question. She got it again.
Okay. So, I'm not making this difficult at all. John is about the difficult
Thank
ones.
you.
So why is it so important to focus on the less vulnerable in communities? And who are the less vulnerable in communities, for
Or
example?
the more vulnerable.
Yeah.
The more vulnerable.
The more vulnerable.
She means the same thing.
Yes,
Yes.
less,
Yeah. Progress. It's just the way it is. When we focus on the less vulnerable people, we see reduced crime. We have peace in the community because they're the ones that will cause mayhem. We also see that we are really making progress because we think about issues like the NSAS. What has happened is that we thought we were making progress, but many of these more vulnerable people are tools in the hands of police. Just sitting around with some of these people and saying, don't sell your votes. It doesn't make sense to someone who is hungry, and needs that money. But also by reaching out, how much are they giving you? 400, I'll give you rest. What can you do in your own capacity, depending on how the community is formed, to make sure that no one is left? We kind of have to just pull ourselves together, just to make sure that no one is pulling us back and we are all moving forward in the right direction. So nobody should be left out. And I think that to categorize more vulnerable people, it really will be basic things like health, how they're doing in terms of like health, food, shelter, education. And I think education, let's even, peg that as the most important because that's really where the exposure, to do things better come from. When people go to school, we begin to say, oh, this is not how to do it. I realize that there are better practices. I realized I don't have to sell my vote. I realize people are just taking that, but it comes from exposure. They really can do, beyond what they know. And that's where we can then bridge the gap to share knowledge, share the right information, and then just pull them, along.
And I am exposed enough to know that communities in Africa, seem to tap a lot into traditions and cultures.
Yes.
So how does this affect the impact?
I think that there will always be negative, and positive impacts, of some of our traditions. Breastfeeding has always been a good cultural practice, and it remains so. Even when many traditions and cultures as we erode, some people would not agree. They believe it's just Western infiltration. What makes you think that is more superior? But I think when all the cards are on the table, we can see when something is more progressive, when something does us better, gives us better outcome, we can choose that alternative rather than just being so fixated. Everyone in Nigeria believes that their religion, their culture is more superior, than the other. But it's good for us to sometimes recognize where this is a better approach. Let's take it.
Sorry, Helen, I have to dive in here. Now, Tosin, let's go personal. Let's go personal. I see a lot of advocacy qualities in you.
No.
How far do you go with, what you've said to us now? I mean, we'll go a long way if you stood in front of us.
And all of that. And our goal is many of these groups, widows, orphans, persons with disabilities, the elderly are the worst hit, and there's only so much you can do to lift them out of poverty without these approaches, this safety net, this social protection. That's why we do, what we do. And the beautiful thing is, as I continue to do this work, I saw a lot of gaps, and that has now led me to co-found, Lafiami, which is an health aggregator or a social enterprise, trying to provide affordable health insurance to millions of Nigerians.
Okay.
And that's because as I interacted with people in some of the communities that we worked, I realized that their health, was in the way and they were making poor decisions. They were giving Antinos 9,000 naira without proper diagnosis. Antinos would give everybody the same drug for malaria, treat them for the same things. Whereas if they paid the same money for an affordable health insurance, they get better diagnosis and live longer, and take.
Lagos is cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
Lagos is big and huge. Everybody's in Lagos. One of the major special grace and knowledge to be able to get them together and impact. How do we do that?
I think it's always better for us to do it, from a leadership standpoint, and leadership in terms of, who do they report to? What associations do they belong? Where can you find them as a collective? Just so that, because you may not be able to reach everyone one by one, but when you do that, with the associations and they see reason, it's easier for them to then pass on programs and say, okay, what can we design, that will be acceptable? And of course, design with them in mind. Because sometimes you also have to ask them as a collective, what do you want? Because sometimes we assume that they want to get off the streets, but they may not want to get off the streets. There may be other benefits. It's the same way people go into a community and think that, people are going to fetch water from miles. I'm going to build them a well. These women are going so far. You build the well and they're not fetching water there. You're wondering why, and they're saying, every time we take that walk to the stream to fetch water, that's the only time we get to leave the house and gist as women, and our husbands will not frustrate us. That's an excuse. And you thought you were solving the problem by building them a well closer, but they enjoy the time off to the stream, So we always have to build with, in inclusive ways and asking people, what do you really want? If I do it like this, will it work? And all of that. So I think that's at the core of it.
I belong to an organization, that interacts and supports the community. I'm sure I can say I belong. I'm a Rotarian.
Please do.
I'm a Rotarian. So, and I can tell you for free that impacting a community is no easy feat.
Absolutely.
Now, could you tell us some of the pros and cons, the do's and don'ts, that we need,
based on your experience?
Just to wrap up in 1 second,
in
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, I think that, like I said, we should always make sure that when we reach out, to a community, we know what they want and what is acceptable. I think that's a major deal breaker, because most times it determines whether the outcome will be successful, or not. So we shouldn't just pass things down to a community or just think that we know what they want. We should always carry them, along. And then, of course, the right stakeholders, because sometimes you're doing all of these things, but you've not even checked that you're not erring on the side of the law, or stuff like that. So just to make sure that we do our due diligence, when it comes to designing programs, interventions, or coming up with projects. I think that's the most important thing that we need. Once we make sure that our due diligence is right and we're really sure about what we want to do. We're not making promises we cannot keep, because sometimes what people do is then you go and change their life. You take someone from a slum, take them to a GRA, but they're not going to survive there because there's no community. It's not there. So you just make sure that even though you have the right intentions, you do your due diligence, and make sure that there's also ownership.
I'm going to enter your head, because you're so...
And she did it without even stuttering.
Yes. Like I always ask, in case we...
Individuals were showing kindness to a neighbor, we're saying hello with a smile, if that's all you can do, even if you don't have something to give, physically, just make sure that you're really showing that you're there. That's how we can look out, for one another in our communities, and we don't have to hear that someone just passed and then be surprised that, I never knew they were going through this. You never asked.
And that's your 2, 3, 4, 5 words.
Wow.
Yes.
And while you're doing that for them, you're doing it for yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been awesome.
Thank you so much.
I would have given you a hug, but I'm far away.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, it's still today with John and Helen. You have met our 2 guests, one more to go. After the fitness segment, which is next with Eric, and standing in for Pharaoh on that segment that I so much love is Fumi today on the show. Please stay with us.
Okay, this morning Well, you're welcome to the fitness segment, all right? So we're going to be doing, as usual, simple exercises that you can do on the go, all right? Just things that are very simple, because you know the fitness industry there's been a paradigm shift. We move from the old days of just regular aerobics to the times when we just move more, do things that will challenge you a little bit more, okay? Because the more you challenge yourself, the better you get, the better you become, the healthier you become. So this is what we're going to do. This is why we're doing this particular segment. And remember, I said it will be like 10 minutes, just something you can do on the go every day of the time that you go about your business. So today, we're going to be doing a simple exercise like punches. You stand in one spot, and then we'll punch for 20, then we'll go with power knee. You bring it up for 20. When we do that, then we'll go down and do what we call inchworm, and that's like this. I'll demonstrate the exercise. You go down, just straight on, stay here, and come back up. Simple. You'll be shocked at the level of force. We don't go down and come up. How difficult it is. Now let's start this. Are we ready, guys? Okay, so let's go. It's easy. Bring your hand forward, tuck in your abs, and then we're going to punch for 20. Ready? 3, 2, 1, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you punch, 7 to my hands. 8, 9, 10 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Go there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You bring that leg up. 6. Get your hands, meet them in the middle. 8, 9, and 10. 10 more. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Change leg. 1, 2, 3. Watch. 4. You bring it up. 5. Make sure that leg comes up. You see the hand. You travel. I'm meeting in the middle here. That's thereby working your abs as well. Where are we? Yeah. So we'll go down for the inchworm. It's just a simple movement. You go down this way. I want to turn so you can see me. Move forward. There, stay there, shoulder over wrist, and trace your hands back, and you stand. Simple, right? All right, let's try that. We're going for 10, okay? Let's do this, come on. I know some of us find it difficult to go down and get up. This is your chance to improve that. Ready? Let's go. Straight, there, that's 1. You get up. 2. 3. 7 more to go. Now, some people like to add a push-up to this. Now, I want you to watch Patrick add a push-up to his own. All right, yeah, watch. He's going to go into a push-up. This for those whose fitness level has gone up. Okay. Now, if you can't do that. It's okay to just do this as well. All right. These guys are crazy. We'll do the simple one. I'll do the simple one so you guys will watch. What's the number, guys? How many do we have left? How many? 4 more. Okay, we'll have 4 more. So we're here. Let's do this. Making sure your legs are straight the whole time. That must be, that's more than 10. All right, okay, so let's go for a second set of this. We're doing a second set, guys. Ready? Bring your hands again. Remember, I said you have to punch 20. When you punch, tighten those abs. Cause a contraction here and just go. All right, let's go. 1, 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 3, 2, and 1. We're going back to inchworm. We need to make 10. Are we ready? All right, again. Let's go. Keep your hand. Unless you can't, then you fold your knee when you're going down. All right? But otherwise, keep it straight, like this. All right? See, I told you these guys are crazy. You don't need to do the push-up with it, okay? they're good at what they do, okay? So you can do the simple one. That's how many for? Okay, we have 6 more. You can do the simple one. Stay here, shoulder over wrist, and twist your hand backward and stand up. See, done soon. We have 1 more set to go. 1 more set to go. Ready? 3. Bring that hands up again. All right, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more. 10 punches to go. Come on. That's 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Remember I said you bring your legs up. Yeah, we're back to the challenging aspect of it. That's the inchworm. Are we ready? Okay, again. Remember, keep your knee straight. Go back. Those of you out there who are tougher, you can add yours. Okay, that's like 5. We have 5 more to go. Good. You see, when you do this, like I said, it's just 10 minutes. 10 minutes. You can do this before you're going to get into the shower. And then after that, you go about the rest of your business for the day. So we'll come to the end of today's workout. And I'm sure if you enjoyed this, even if you didn't, try and join the next one and enjoy it. So until I see you again, thank you very much.
Thank you, JS and Auntie Helen. So, still on social impact, my guest today is also a social impact entrepreneur. She's Farida Ladipo Ajayi, and she's advocating for literacy in Nigeria. She's the founder and literacy leader at the Bookworm Cafe. Now, the Bookworm Cafe is a children's literary consultancy that owns a children's. Now, Farida is a Tony Elumelu entrepreneur and a Cher Blair mentee. Thank you for joining literacy among young children. Why is it that important?
Yeah, so literacy is important because literacy is like the foundation of everything. So there's nothing you do in life that you don't need literacy for. Mm-hmm. Even if you say, I'm not going to be a writer, or I'm not going to be on TV, you're going to do math. You need to read the questions. You're going to do science. You need to read the questions. So it's the foundation of everything. You need to learn to read and to learn to read well so that you can at least communicate with other people, and you can communicate by speaking and communicate in writing. If you can't do that, then yeah, as good as not existing. You can't function in a society. So it's important because it helps you, even in terms of cognitive development, the way you think. Literacy affects the way you think. You think better when you are able to, when you read and when you are able to express yourself in writing as well. Your thoughts are smarter. Your thoughts are, you communicate better, and you generally are a more, you contribute to society essentially when you take literacy. When
public schools, some children are not even going to school at all. How do you match that and ensure that everybody gets on board?
Okay, so two ways. So the first way is, one of our dreams is to be able to set up community libraries in as many communities in around Nigeria. So just like you have churches on every street, my dream is for us to be able to have somewhere children can walk in to read on every street in Nigeria. That's the dream. So right now, what we started with doing was to create small community libraries in conjunction with the schools. So every Saturday, we meet in each of these schools. The children come for what we call book club or literacy club. So we bring books to these centers, and the children come. We read the books. We have literacy coaches who work with the children. Lots of issues that we've noticed that I didn't even know that existed before we started. So some children not being able to read at all, some children with terrible, serious comprehension issues. So they're reading, but they don't understand what they're reading. And then some of them with grammar issues. So we've seen all of these things, and the books that we've been able to use with them and the methods or the strategies we've used with them has helped them to improve in literacy. So typically, most of the children who go to our book clubs, you find that they come best in literacy in their schools. It always happens. During prize giving day, we're always contacted, oh, my child won best in literacy. Thank you for the impact. And then secondly, we support a lot of NGOs that give gifts to children. So NGOs that support different organizations across Nigeria. So they tell us that they want to visit a school or they want to visit a community, and they need to give things to the children that will be impactful in their lives. We have contact with a lot of authors because we also have a bookstore. So they also support us by giving us books, and we pass on to these organizations.
Okay.
So,
entertainment seems like to be on the front burner. So how do you now convince parents that literacy will help with their children's, reasoning and just their general outlook on life? How do you get them on board?
So one thing that has been really helpful for us, when we started very small, and the word got out when parents started to tell their friends, my child is in this book